Hey there, Hill folk, and welcome back to another episode of Appalachian Intelligence. We're extremely grateful that you guys will join us again for another week, for another episode. We're super thankful to have you guys here visiting with us. With you tonight, you got Justin and Ryan. As of now, Lance is on his way, as usual, bringing up the rear. But yeah, I figured you'd like that bringing up the rear joke, Ryan.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We got a really cool topic for you guys tonight. We don't have a guest on here, but I've been diving into a certain topic, some researching on it, and have found some extremely interesting things due to a firsthand account that I got from somebody the other day. And well, y'all are in for a treat. Y'all are in for a treat. But before we get into all that, we like to share our 5-star reviews when we get them. When we get love, we like to show love. So our first one that we'll share today comes from DBS 98765. And it has a ghost emoji and says, "A bloody good listen, chaps. Keep the good work up," from the UK. So, DBS, we appreciate that, man. Or woman, I guess. It's
Yeah.
wrong for me to assume based on just a few initials.
We just appreciate it either way.
We appreciate it either way. And I like the cool little ghost emoji. I like it. Our second one we'll share today. This comes from a guest that we had, and a good old boy member of the Hill Folk tribe now. This one comes from Bino777F. And this says, "Great show. Ryan, you still sound like a fat guy. Love, Bean."
Well, thank you, baby.
I love that, dude. I love that he was still listening in our interview with Burton whenever you made the statement, "Well, apparently I sound like a fat guy." That's what Bean said.
Yeah.
I love it, dude. I love it.
Oh man.
So we thank you guys for those 5-star reviews. We thank you that you keep showing love for the show. We keep growing, and again, we can't express how appreciative we are for all the Hill folk, for all you listeners. We've got a lot of plans in place. We should have Patreon up and going any day now for anybody that's interested in that. So just keep a lookout for that. But we'll let you know. We'll let you know when it's up and running. I guess we'll just dive on into the topic while we're still waiting on Lance. We'll just dive right on in here. He'll just have to play catch up. So, Ryan, have you ever heard of the Glimmerman?
Yes, actually. He's like that older white guy with the ponytail that does the fake kung fu on movies. Steven Segal.
Well, no. We are not talking about the 1997 film Glimmerman, starring Steven Seagal and the great action hero Damon Wayans. Great movie. It's got like a 7% on Rotten Tomatoes. We're not talking about that one. Even though when you look up the Glimmerman, that's the first thing you're going to find. Hollywood's trying to infiltrate everything.
Yeah. Well, when you broached this subject to us, I was like, I'm pretty sure that was a movie.
Yeah.
So I Google it, and first thing pops up, Steven Seagal, and I'm like, well, I'm making a joke about that. I got to.
I mean, you gotta take your shots when you get them. You have to. You don't have a choice.
No, I have to.
Well, no, this Glimmerman that I'm talking about today, okay, there's been a few accounts of these. Some of the more famous ones that people might have heard about come from like David Police's documentary. One of the missing 411. Well, it's like a full length doc. This one, it's missing 411, The Hunted.
Yeah.
And in that documentary, there's a lady by the name of Jan Maccabee who explains seeing something an entity or something that kind of, she describes it the way that people describe this Glimmerman. Now, I don't understand why they call it a Glimmerman, because I can't find a story of anybody saying that it shimmers or glimmers. Or actually, I have seen like a couple people say it kind of shimmered in the sunlight, but mostly it's described as a humanoid form. It's mostly invisible. Okay. So it's essentially translucent. All right. But here's a cool take that I think that I've looked at and found. You know, you hear a lot of people talk about in Bigfoot sightings how Bigfoot kind of looks like it cloaks. You know, like he was there 1 minute and then the next minute he cloaks, and you can see the stuff moving around him, but he's just like a blur, right? You've heard those stories. So essentially, that's kind of what these people are describing. Okay, he's usually described, or it is usually described as being between 5 and 7 feet tall. Obviously, reports usually come from deep within forests and deep in the woods. But there have been people that have had reports from inside their own homes, which is super freaky.
Yeah.
They are like their physical surroundings. You know, if they're in the forest, people will hear leaves breaking and cracking, and leaves rustling. Or a lot of the reports have come that they're like jumping treetop to treetop. Okay, and in that situation, people will see branches swinging and moving, swaying. They'll see or hear branches pop and crack, and all these different things. So whatever this is, if it has an effect on the physical surroundings, it has mass, right? I mean, it has to have a form of mass to be able to affect the physical surroundings.
Yeah.
So when people describe this thing, more often than not, and sometimes the question's asked, more often than not, they are described as, hey, have you ever seen The Predator? It
I was
almost
just
looks,
getting ready to say, we all know how to kill this thing. You fall down a hill near a river, cover yourself in mud, and then wait for it to go by and blow it up.
yeah, that's it. Arnie solved it a long time ago.
Yeah. I don't know where you'll get the weapons or the bombs, but
Well, fortunately, there hasn't been any reports of this thing shooting lasers or like mini nukes at anybody. So that's good news.
Thank God.
That's the good news about it. But well, I'll get into what brought me about really looking into this topic, because I'd heard of it before. I told you that I'd watched the documentary, Missing 411, The Hunted, and I'd seen Jan McAbee's account. But what really got me into looking into this thing was I ran into a guy that I've known my whole life. He's always been a family friend. I've known him my entire life since I was a small kid. And this guy, we're starting to get a little bit of a local following around here. So whenever you're out in public, and you witnessed this with me the other day when we were out at a local store and people just start telling ghost stories to us.
Well, they only know you so far. They didn't even know they were talking to me.
Yeah, but they were. That's all that matters. But we're in there, and I'm in this store, and this guy comes up to me that I've known my whole life, like I said, and he starts talking about the podcast. So we're talking, just a little bit about the business and how it all works and all this and that. And he asked me, he said, "Hey, would you like to hear a really weird story that I have?" And I said, "Dude, that's all I want to do is listen to weird stories." And he was like, he started laughing. He's like, "Okay." So he said about a year ago, he was hunting. It was the beginning of bow season, deer season. And he's got a stand, a tree stand that he hunts out of, every year. Same spot, same location. That's where he hunts out of. So he goes up to this tree stand before daylight one day. He said about an hour before daylight to get up there, get settled in. So he gets there and he says, while he's settling in, before the sun breaks or day breaks, he keeps seeing movement out of his periphery. So he said every time he sees this movement out of his periphery, he, turns his head, glances over, and there's nothing there. So he says this keeps happening, keeps happening, keeps happening. Never does see anything. So finally day breaks. He's sitting there. This keeps happening all throughout the day. He said there was no wind that day, not a whole lot of movement in the woods around him, but he keeps hearing like branches pop and crack and leaves rustling and all this different stuff. He just chalked it up, that's probably just squirrels playing, just squirrels being squirrels. We've all been hunting and, squirrels are going crazy so much. You always think there's a big monster buck coming any second. So he's hunting the majority of the day. He says he sees nothing happens. About noon, it gets about noon and it's getting warm and he hasn't seen anything. He's just tired. So he's like, you know what? I'm going to go home. I'm going to get some lunch. I'm going to get some things done around the house. I'll come back this evening. So he heads out and climbs down out of the stand. He walks probably 30 or 40 yards away, he said. And he said something told him, look back at the stand. So he stops, he pivots, and he takes a look back at his stand. And he says he sees, this is his words, he said, I see this big blurry blob jump from a tree limb opposite my stand onto my tree stand. He said, and when it jumps, the limb bounces up and down. The limb moves. So again, it goes back to this, have an effect on the physical surroundings, right?
Yeah.
So he says this tree limb bounces. This thing jumps from the tree limb onto his tree stand, right? He said this thing is big, like 7.5 feet. But still, he says there's no real features or any like color or anything. He says it's just his words again. It was just this big blurry blob. So he says this thing stands up and is like looking around, shifting its weight and looking at him. All right. So he's standing there. He's making eye contact with this thing. And, what he perceived to be eye contact because, this thing doesn't have any eyes. But he's standing there. He says, a few seconds go by and this thing jumps down from out of the tree, out of the tree stand, jumps down out of it, hits the ground. The leaves kind of crack, rustle, and move whenever he lands. And then he says he just booked it out of there. He got out of there as fast as he could because he had no idea what this thing was. So
I think the worst part of that is being hunted from your own tree stand.
Right?
Yeah, that sucks.
So I asked him I started asking him a few questions. I said, okay, what did this thing like? What kind of shape did it have? He said, well, it looked like a person. He said it was a human looking shape. It was just, this was his next words, which is probably the best way that I've heard it described. He said, looking at this thing was like looking at a person through saran wrap, except it was just that. It was just that figure. If you cut out a saran wrap person and placed it into the woods, that's what it would have looked like. So again, you hear these sightings and these accounts and these reports of like Bigfoot cloaking, or you watch The Predator like we talked about, and that kind of predator cloaking tech. I mean, that's kind of what these people are describing whenever they talk about this Glimmerman.
Speaking of Glimmerman and cloaking technology, did you boys happen to see or hear the recent Joe Rogan podcast?
Which one?
The one that just dropped. Whatever it was.
Hancock, and
they were talking about the technology that's going to be released in the next 3 months.
Oh yeah, when Randall Carlson is talking about.
Was talking. Yep. either the most recent one or the one right before that, I think. But if you haven't listened to it, or aren't a fan of Joe Rogan, or don't subscribe to his multi-million-dollar podcast on Spotify, you can definitely usually find clips of it either via whatever social media source that you like. You can find them on YouTube. I would suggest that this is the hill folk out there who obviously enjoy the same weird things that we enjoy. Go just search that up and have, when as Graham Carlson was talking about, just in the circles of people that he knows, in the next 3 to 6 months, the amount of ancient technology that they are currently working with, that they have projects going with this ancient technology that they are going to begin to release essentially to the public, i.e., much like the congressional hearing with the UFOs. He specifically quoted one project going on in the Maldives where they were using essentially a way to have energy. It didn't cost anything as far as like enthalpy type deals. The energy was just kind of a free energy source that they are dealing with now in the Maldives. He went on to mention and allude to a couple of other things that we have obviously talked about on numerous occasions. One of them, though, when you hear this, and the reason I brought that up, what does that have to do with anything about Glimmerman? The reason I brought that up, though, is because anytime we think about or talk about these Bigfoot cloaking, we're having some type of either one, technology, two, just a evolutionary trait they have developed that's allowed them to do that. And then we always mention Predator. The abilities that Predator has, if you think about it, it's not really that far of a jump for a organism, i.e. Bigfoot, whatever, to have the ability to click on, click off, cloaking and technology, much like Harry Potter's invisibility cloak, have that built in. Or if you even think about it, what a lot of times how I like to consider it too is just a super fast advanced chameleon. Like we can watch chameleons change their color to imitate their surrounding. But if Bigfoot or this Glimmerman can just do the same thing, just do it really, really fast, right? Just has the ability to do that very quickly, which I think is probably another idea or another thing that may be happening. Why this? Because you always hear about this cloaking and things going on. It could be very easily be technology or just an evolutionary trait they have able to access to, and it can just do it really, really fast.
Yeah.
And I said all that to say, go watch the freaking Joe Rogan and those guys talking about these ancient technologies that people are obviously working with right now. That they're supposedly going to be releasing some of these projects here just pretty soon. We're going to get access to some of this ancient technology that's going on, which is kind of crazy too. If it's a real thing or if it's just, lip service, because it's kind of becoming a hot topic to talk about, but kind of interesting.
Yeah. It will be interesting. We need to watch and see what they talk about in the next little bit, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I just like it. My brain, obviously, you're on. You know how I am. My brain automatically goes to like breathing underwater, like the Atlanteans are doing, and super ways of geometry building that doesn't take you cutting rocks with geometry, and not actually having to do any type of power tools and like all these crazy idea things we read about in comic books. Essentially, could have very easily have been happening, and maybe we'll get to see some of it. And maybe that's why we see such an uptick of superhero movies and comic book movies right now. We talk about karmic effect all the time. That's maybe one of the reasons why we're just being flooded with it, because we're going to start seeing those things actually happening in the world today. Interesting. I thought to think about.
Yeah.
Oh, I believe that wholeheartedly. I believe that's why there's so much of this stuff coming out. And, like Lance said, go check out the Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson episode. It is phenomenal. And that this research group down in the Maldives that Lance is talking about, I can't wait till this stuff starts dropping.
Like it was literally scratching me right in my lizard brain.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, Joe Rogan, he can be, does a great job, obviously, with this podcast, and can sometimes, I think, be a little over fantastical to kind of pump the product. Is kind of his shtick, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that. It's very, very good. But even he was you can kind of see his reactions and stuff. He's just like, what?
Yeah.
It was fun to see a genuine reaction from Joe. These guys are kind of bringing up one of the things he mentioned too was like cutting rock using ancient geometry. That was another one of the projects he alluded to.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool, crazy to think about, anyways.
Well, he was talking about how they have a generator right now that has no moving parts. It's all just based on sacred ancient geometry. It's nuts to think about, dude. It's nuts. And don't only go check out this episode, but go check out the Netflix series Ancient Apocalypse that Graham Hancock has just put out. I've watched the first couple episodes in it, and it's already awesome.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
That site that was up on the mountain with the volcanic rock that wasn't even from that area. They've already proven that it was from another area.
Yeah.
But mainstream scientists say it's nothing, but they take LiDAR images and there's 3 chambers underneath it.
And that just shows, man, that all throughout history, for a lot longer than what most archaeologists say or claim or what's put out there, that's all society's always done, is built on top of each other. Just kept on.
Yeah.
It's really awesome to think about. But no, Lance, I'm glad that you brought that up because, we already see it in nature. We see biological organisms that can cloak right now. There's a type of squid that if you pick up, it'll go translucent, like completely. So, I mean, it's already there, which brings me to something out there called ITE'S. Have you ever heard of the term ITE or invisible terrestrial entity?
No.
Okay, so I've done quite a bit of research into some of this. Now, the site that I'm pulling this information off of right now is Ancient Origins, okay? But I've looked at the official documentation from the scientists involved into this. All right. So I just thought that this website done the best job of taking all of the data and all the papers and the abstract and all this and that and just putting it together in one kind of streamlined deal. Lance, have you ever heard of ITEs, invisible terrestrial entities?
Yes.
Okay. You know, I
wouldn't say an active working knowledge. I'm very baseline. If you were to ask me a Jeopardy question about what that is, I'd give you a half answer, and then he has a few other things to do about. I know what it is, but as far as not like probably to the degree that you do.
Okay, so
Ryan, do you know anything about ITEs?
No, I have no idea. I've never even heard of them. But we can't discount the fact that it's Steven Seagal practicing kung fu, and he's just a blur.
You keep forgetting about Damon Wayans. Okay, he's one of the most important parts of that movie.
I know, but Damon Wayans is one of the greatest of all time. Now, Major Payne is probably. We've been over this. It's one of our favorite movies.
Yeah, we've been over it. We've been over it.
Steven Seagal brings a whole other element. That guy.
Yeah. Okay, so this is from a new report published. Well, this says a new report then. This was published in 2016. And it's from the American Journal of Modern Physics. Okay. It's revealed a startling finding. A newly developed telescope with concave lenses has observed for the first time entities in our terrestrial environment that are invisible to our eyes and to conventional Galileo telescopes with convex lenses. Even more surprising is the fact that these entities have been observed to move intelligently in the night sky in a manner suggesting unauthorized surveillance of the area. Okay, so just take all that into account real fast. All right. Give me just a sec. Y'all talk for a minute while I'll go make this dog be quiet.
There were no animals hurt during the filming of this episode.
Maybe not.
So we're talking on that. We're talking like drones with camouflage capabilities.
Correct.
Yeah. Well,
That's kind of the way I understand it as well.
yeah, for surveillance purposes. That, I mean, who knows what technologies out there by other governments?
You think about just the stealth bombers that we have. How is it will be much easier to put that into a drone? You don't have to, spend as much resources to cover a whole jet up. Just a little drone.
Yeah.
It'd be a whole lot easier. You can pump a lot more of those out a lot quicker.
Okay, so what this telescope has discovered, all right? It's called the Santilli telescope, all right? And it was made by Dr. Ruggero Santilli, a highly regarded expert in mathematics, cosmology, and physics. He's been nominated. Well, this is back in 2016, so he may have won it. I don't know. I didn't follow up on that part. But it was nominated for Nobel Prizes in physics and chemistry. Lance. Dr. Santilli developed a new type of telescope that was designed to observe antimatter light. All right. This form of light has a negative index of refraction, thus requiring concave lenses to focus it rather than the traditional convex lenses used in conventional Galileo telescopes. Okay. Using a pair of Galileo and Santilli telescopes, Dr. Santilli found the first known evidence of the apparent existence in our universe of antimatter galaxies, antimatter asteroids, and antimatter cosmic rays. These results were published in the journal Clifford Algebras and their applications in 2014. But that's not all the new telescope observed.
Let me stop you just for a second.
Okay.
So, antimatter, the concept of antimatter, creating antimatter or observing it, all of that comes from CERN.
Correct.
Every bit of it. Like nobody else is doing that. Nobody else has anything to. Okay, proceed.
Yes, you're on it, Lance.
Proceed.
You're so on it. Okay. So this comes directly from Dr. Santilli's documentation over what happened while this was going on. Okay. On September the 5th, 2015, at 9:30 p.m., the author aimed a pair of 100 millimeter Galileo and Santilli telescopes at the night sky over Tampa Bay, Florida, as seen from the northeast orientation of the terrace of room 775 of the Vinoy Renaissance Hotel in St. Petersburg. The tests were merely intended for the search of antimatter galaxies, and consequently, the paired telescopes were aimed at the sky. But sudden clouds halted the tests, and the author oriented the pair of telescopes horizontally over Tampa Bay. To his great surprise, unidentified yet clearly visible entities immediately appeared in the screen of the camera attached to the Santilli telescope without any enlargement, without the same entities being visible to the naked eye, and without any corresponding image existing in the screen of the camera attached to the Galileo telescope. This unexpected discovery triggered a novel systematic use of the pair of Galileo and Santilli telescopes, this time for the search of entities, here called invisible terrestrial entities, that are invisible to our eyes as well as to our optical instruments with convex lenses, but are otherwise fully visible via the Santilli telescope with concave lenses and are located in our terrestrial environment.
Let me stop you one more time, because you're getting a little extra sciencey here, and there's some things that we are assuming to be true that aren't necessarily true. Is that okay if I interject for a second?
Not at all. It's all true.
We've never actually seen antimatter in nature.
Dr. Santilli did.
No. So CERN created the ability to find the light that is transmitted from antimatter. But for us to have, not us, but for scientists to have actually look out into the natural world and see antimatter the way we see oxygen or nitrogen or something, I don't think that's ever happened, right?
Well, what he goes on to report, and there's a whole lot here, but I'm going to try to sum it up. Okay. What he goes on to say, he gives invisible terrestrial entities like two different classifications, 1 and 2. All right.
So he's trying to
One,
describe ITEs as antimatter light.
no, he's trying to describe it as something that, um, let's see, visible to the human eye or to conventional optical instruments with convex lenses, but otherwise fully visible, exists. Hold on just a second. He further notes that the emission of antimatter light does not mean that the entity is made up of antimatter, because the existence of the entities within our atmosphere would imply a cataclysmic explosion due to a matter antimatter annihilation.
Ryan.
All right. In short,
Ryan, doesn't this sound like a little bit of hooey to you?
Well,
no.
I'm just listening to it all first.
In short, it appears the ITE-1 consists of matter entities in our terrestrial environment achieving locomotion via the acquisition of antimatter in their interior with consequential use of matter antimatter propulsion, and achieve invisibility via the emission of antimatter light as a sort of exhaust.
So they are using antimatter to propel their craft, and then the product of that antimatter they are also using to cloak so that we can't see them.
That's his theory.
To put it in really simple terms, right? I mean,
it's totally simple terms. That's his theory.
Okay, so he's not saying it's made up of antimatter. They said they're using it.
Which would explain why you can't find antimatter, which gives a really easy explanation to why you can find matter everywhere but not antimatter. Because these intelligent beings are using this antimatter to use their propel to propel their UFOs, and then they're using it to cloak them stuff. And it sounds like a really easy way to say there's no antimatter.
And that may be possible. This may be all this dude's doing. But in short, the crazy thing about all this is, regardless of what his theory is, based on what he's seeing, this Santilli telescope picks up something that's not visible to the human eye,
Sure.
and not visible to a traditional Galileo telescope. So there's something there that biologically we're not seeing that this telescope is picking up. And what he discovered through watching these things throughout, this night and several other nights, were that these things moved in a way that seemed intelligent. Okay. And that even goes on to say that's why they said, looked like they were surveying the area.
Does he have, is there video of this anywhere? Did you find, or did you
just there's some pictures that are on here. There's a couple, it shows like a time lapsed picture of, I won't be able to really, I don't even know if you can see.
Richard, look, hang on, hold it right there. Okay.
Well,
I
I'm
can
trying to get it clear.
Yeah, no, you're good. Yeah, I can see the path of which it's. Yeah, I can see what he's trying to.
So that's what the Santilli telescope is bringing up, that the naked eye is not picking up, and a traditional Galileo telescope is not picking up. Now, the only reason that I bring any of that up at all is because we talk about on here quite a bit, and this goes into one of the theories possibly, and this is just me speaking, okay? This is me pulling all this straight out of my butt, because we've talked about the theory that maybe this Glimmerman is some form of cloaking cryptid, right? Possibly. That's a theory that's out there. But I think what this Santilli telescope and Dr. Santilli and what he's showing in all this is, if there are things in the skies, in our terrestrial environment that we cannot physically see, but we're coming up with technologies that could blow the whole thing open, dude.
Quick question. Are there any other major differences between a Galilean telescope and a Santilli other than the lenses?
It's just the concave and convex lenses. They have.
I don't see what I'm going with is I don't see how switching from convex to concave changes how we perceive light?
Well, they have a diagram up here about how both of them are built. I mean, you guys and the hill folk out there, you can go check them out and look into it. And, look, maybe this dude is totally full of crap, but he is he is a highly regarded expert in mathematics, cosmology, and physics, and has been nominated for Nobel Prizes in physics and chemistry. So he is a
So did Watson and Crick, but they stole everything from Rosalind Franklin. That's the fact that he has a Nobel Prize and whatever, to a certain degree. Nobel Prize in chemistry and physics doesn't always lead to validity in all things.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out the whole deal about whether I've looked through a lens point, coming out this way or going to the inside. It doesn't change how I perceive light.
Look, I have no idea. I'm not a science buff. I wasn't looking at the telescopes. I can't tell you how to build them.
No, we can use special cameras, just like on David Attenborough on Netflix special there, and Life at Night or whatever it is. Or that wasn't even David Attenborough. I can't remember that woman's name, but just the way other things perceive light and the way. No, it was David Attenborough, because this is the Life in Color. And how we perceive different colors and different animals seeing different light spectrums and all that. But those cameras were actually changing that, But I don't see how looking through regular lenses like glasses, like you're wearing glasses, and saying, no, I just turn the lenses the other way. It doesn't give you the ability to see, Well,
like I said, I mean, the models, the way they're built, it looks a little
I'm sure there's obviously a lot more stuff going on in there.
And I could be wrong too. It may change the way.
And like I said, I mean, there's a lot of articles, I pulled from
a lot of sciencey stuff that I'm sure
a ton.
None of us have any idea about.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of sciencey stuff. And like I said, I don't know the entire basis. Like, I found the articles, I read what this dude said that he's seen and how he saw it and the ways that he went about and the data that he collected from that. But the only thing that it piqued in my brain was, we already know that, we can only see like 1 or 2% of the visual spectrum of light, biologically. That's our eyes. That's all we can really see. Right.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
So if we have something here, and even if it is a bunch of boo hockey or whatever, it still leads to the fact of, we know that there's 98, 99% of the light spectrum that we can't see. So what are we missing? Well, like, what are we not able to see? If we have these things that are all of that, it was for me to say, what if these Glimmermen or these cloaking cryptid or this cloaking technology that people report seeing, what if that is just something biologically in nature that we don't have the ability to see all the time, unless it's just like perfect conditions, or, maybe just certain people have, I don't know.
And that's why, not sorry, Justin.
No, you're okay.
And that's why I think, I'm glad that you brought this up and that we are having this episode on this, because I haven't really talked about this a whole lot. This is the reason on why I think Bigfoot is real and that we don't see them. Because I think that, like I said, there's just something in their DNA, whether it be an evolutionary trait or just the way they're made up, that we just can't see them. Like, I think a lot of times, if we're in the woods with them, that we may be looking right at them and they're just not moving. We just can't tell if they're there because they're so well camouflaged. I think that's the main reason why we as humans aren't able to have the evidence that they are real. And so also why I think that when we see some of these videos coming out a lot of times with people walking through the woods or whatever, and you catch one like looking back over, like I automatically think that's fake, because I think that they just have that inherent trait in them that we just can't see them. Like, we just have to be. We're either gonna have to develop a camera, right, or heat signatures, or there's gonna have to be something that we're gonna have to. We don't have technology for yet, or at least readily available technology that we can take out into the woods with. I think even to the point that like they're able to mask their body temperatures, and that's why a lot of times heat signatures don't pick them up because they have a way in which they can either an extra layer of skin, an extra layer of fat that they can kind of regulate the temperature up and down. They can take their body temperature and make themselves shiver enough to make it appear that they're coming off much colder than they are. I think they have the ability to do that, right? I don't think that it's any technology they have access to. I think it's any type of portal that they're jumping through or some space alien they get. I think it's just simply in their DNA that they have that we can't see them. And that's why I think Bigfoot's real. I think Sasquatches are real. I think they're a real part of the world because there's enough evidence for people out there that, like I've always said, where there's smoke, there's fire. I just think we don't see them more often because like, they're there. We just can't see them.
Don't talk about justice portals like that.
I think it's a
But-
very simply nature-based explanation, right? Very human nature, very Mother Earth explanation on why we don't see them. And I think there's probably a whole bunch of other species out there just like that. We don't have any idea because we can't see them.
Yeah. Well, that could be this whole Glimmerman thing. This whole humanoid, translucent kind of just blurry blobs. Look at the way that what I've seen in videos, people like using CG or trying to replicate what they're seeing. It's almost like if you take like the heat rising off of asphalt, okay? That mirage looking kind of heat wave or whatever that you're seeing there, and just turning that into like a humanoid silhouette and them moving around throughout the woods. That's mainly like what these people are reporting. So what we're talking about here, if there was some kind of biological cloaking, like we said, there's animals out there that can do it. There's aquamarine life that can cloak like that. I mean, species, they evolve to fit, if they're predators, they evolve to be able to hunt better, right? More efficiently, right? If you're prey, if you're a little lower on the food chain, you evolve to be able to, hide better sometimes. But what if this thing is like, top of the food chain, but it's also kind of, it's a hybrid, it's picked up some of these. Well, okay, if I can hide myself completely until I'm right up on my prey, because I have a hard time believing that something that's between 5 and 7 feet tall and can jump from limb to limb and jump from a 20-foot high tree stand onto the ground, and everything's totally cool. Something so agile, I have a hard time believing that would be prey.
Yeah.
I mean, in most forests.
So I've got a buddy that I hunt with that we spend tons and tons of time together. And several years ago, he had never done much deer hunting. He'd been always more of a turkey hunter. I've always more of a deer hunter. We kind of linked up and kind of got crossed informational paths, right? And then became just good friends. We worked together. He's totally colorblind to red. So I was with him when he shot his first deer, shot his first buck. And he's all fired up. I'm excited for him, tickled to death for him. And we know that it had ran over the hill away. So we had waited, like you're supposed to, half an hour or so. And we were going to go track it and try to find it. So we get down to where we knew that he shot it at, and I could see the rustling of the leaves where the deer had taken off after it had been shot. And we're looking around trying to find blood, so we can kind of start tracking it. And I'm looking everywhere, and I don't see any blood. Maybe you missed it. Maybe you just scared it. I said, no, I'm telling you, I hit that thing. He's standing and he's looking around. He's looking down at the ground. He's looking everywhere, and I'm kind of moving in an area around him. Well, I walk up to where he's at and look down at his feet, and there's blood everywhere. And I was like, look at your feet. And he looked down. I was like, what? There is blood everywhere. Like you're standing where obviously the deer has been hit and is bleeding profusely. He couldn't see it. He couldn't see the blood because of the leaves. There were orangish, reddish leaves, and then the red of the totally colorblind to it, and didn't even know that. Right? Color blindness, certain degrees, is a recessive allele that comes down from your mother's side. Okay, so you've got, I'm gonna get too sciencey on you, but you essentially got dominant and recessive alleles that show up on a couple of the different on the different sex chromosomes, and that's how the traits get passed on. And color blindness is one of those traits that kind of flip. The recessive trait that can flip comes from your mother's side, but it's a pretty common thing, and it's just a genetic variation in humans. Their cones and rods in their eyes just can't access the colors that everybody else's can. And he has that case. He has red color blindness, so he doesn't see things. It just kind of look, everything kind of looks grayish. She says grayish green to him. What is the exact opposite of color blindness? What is the 180-degree opposite of color blindness?
A full color spectrum.
Full color spectrum. Being able to see all those things, right? And if humans have the ability in their DNA to get to color blindness, it's not that big of a jump for other species to have the ability in their DNA to get to full color spectrum seeing. It's not that big of a jump. So what if these Glimmermen, Bigfoot, just have that variation in their eyes that they're able to see all those things, and then therefore they're seeing things on a different spectrum. They can change now or maneuver in a way because they're seeing different colors than we are. They can kind of hide themselves in plain sight. We just can't see it. I don't think it's that. Yeah. I don't think it's that big of a stretch.
I don't think so either. I think that's
some really pretty colors when you do shrooms.
Maybe that's what we need, Ryan. We need you in the woods. No food for 2 days. Just no food for 2 days. Just water. No food for 2 days. And then just nothing but shrooms. And then just send you out there and see what you see with a GoPro on, a front-facing GoPro and a face-facing GoPro. We need both. So we can get your reaction to what's being seen in front of you.
Yeah. Well, no, I think you're probably right on. I don't think that that's too much of a stretch to think that that's a possibility. And that's the thing.
Not like a totally crazy theory, right? Either. I mean, that's not. It makes, like, the more I think about this, like, the more I've thought about it and have thought about it for quite some time, obviously, it's like, like, that just kind of makes sense. There's such great thing. Just think about in human population and the 8 billion people that are here on the earth. Think about how much variation there is in our DNA. There's so much.
Yeah.
Think about how many more animals are on the earth than there are people. It's an astronomical different number. Like, it's not even close. It's not even on the same graph of how many more animals there are per people, compared to people. So it tells me there's a greater degree of variation that can take place in their DNA, which allows for all these other possibilities that happen.
So many different animals see on different light spectrums anyway. And like, you wonder how tigers can chase down deer and antelope. It's because they can't see red either. They can't see orange. Everything looks green. So the tiger walking through the green grass just looks like the rest of it with stripes.
Yeah.
And things like that. Birds seeing so many different spectrums of color. We only see 3, right?
Yes.
And deer seeing 2. I know they like the red and all that, so they just see green. But like crabs, you wonder how they see so well. Like, you'll walk towards one that just takes off running. Well, you just have to go watch that documentary on how they see. It's nuts. Everything is like a yellowish orangish color, and then everything in the background that's not just the skyline is black. So birds flying way up in the air, they see them long before we do. Things like that. It's nuts.
Interesting.
Well, I think like we're on a really, like, this is a strong topic to talk about something like this, because all the reports that I've read, I shared a firsthand report here that somebody told to me, but all the reports that I've read, This guy freaked out and just got out of there. Like, well, yeah, I mean, that would be scary, but he didn't say, well, this thing chased me, or this thing, I mean, the majority of the reports just sound like this thing shows up. If they do see it, and there's not a whole lot of reports out there, they're really hard to come by. But it's like, if people do see this thing, it's not like being aggressive or anything like that. It's just one of those things that, hey, you're here, but I'm here, and I don't want you here. It's like a territorial thing. Like, you just need to get on out of here. And because I'm different, I'm going to spook you a little bit, and you got to go. I mean, there have been like a couple reports of people getting followed, but nothing aggressive to the point of, oh, I was scared for my life. It's just the fact of, well, I'm seeing this thing that's not supposed to be there. It's super weird. I don't know how to handle it. Don't know what to do with it. So,
which kind of leads to the MO of it anyways, right? If I'm an animal that has the ability to camouflage so nothing can see me, and then something can see me, I want to make it to that person leaves so that it can't see me anymore, right? I don't want to just try to go. I don't want to start a fight with it. I don't want to try to go kill it. Like, I just want it to go on, so then it can't see me anymore, right? That seems very logical in the thinking of something as well. It's not going to go out of its way to start a fight or do something to try to kill whatever it is that's in the environment. I just needed to go on so it can't see me anymore.
Yeah. I mean, again, it sounds extremely biological.
Yeah.
But so here's some of the theories that I've been throwing around in my vast expanse of a brain. All right. So we've talked about the possible cloaking nature of a biological creature. Okay. We've talked about, Dr. Santilli and all of his work with seeing these invisible terrestrial entities and being able to map those and what they're doing. We've talked about, all of these different things. We talked about the possibility that they're just their own organism. Maybe it's not a Bigfoot. Maybe it's not anything that we've ever seen or heard of or whatever. Maybe people misclassify these cloaked images, if that's all they see, as, well, that had to be Bigfoot because it's, 7 feet tall and it has really long arms and it's extremely agile. But we've talked about maybe the possibility of this thing being its own thing, right? Its own organism. But this is where we always got to get to. And it's not demons, it's not portals.
I think portals for sure.
Well, here is one of the theories. What if this is something that is of the spiritual realm that's just beyond the veil that some people do see? And that's a possibility, I think.
I was just getting ready to say, what if it's that cult that fights astral demons on the astral plane?
It might be, Ryan.
And Steven Segal joined that cult.
It might be what do they call them? The Dark Lords?
Yes, they're fighting the Dark Lords, and you could bring car antennas and things like that.
Swizzle sticks.
But on the astral plane, it changes into great swords and bow staffs and nunchucks and
killing is my business. Demons and business is good.
You're damn right.
Did y'all see that right there? I could have beat Steven Seagal in a knife fight with this pen right then.
You've definitely done some LARPing in your day, I can tell.
That was
I'm a LARPer.
That was a lightsaber in the astral plane.
So, that to me is a possibility. Maybe this is something from that spiritual realm, something that people are seeing, materialize. But even deeper than all of that, what if this is government technology that they can invisibly cloak people. Now, I don't know why they'd be sending out people in the middle of the woods to like spy on.
During hunting season. That's ridiculous.
Maybe that's what it's all about. Maybe they're game wardens that have been given this secret government technology, invisibility cloaking, just like in here.
You're going to tell me that the government's going to give the possum police some type of cloaking technology so they can catch some good old boy using a muzzleloader and a bit of a bow?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
I don't think they care about it that much to do that.
I think they're looking for a reason to get back into these mountains for any possible reason they can get. They're coming back. And when they come back, they're coming back in invisibility cloaks.
They would just come in and do it.
Mischief managed.
That's not a good idea, Ryan.
It's better than going invisible during hunting season.
They've done that quite a bit, and they lose every time. Every time.
Well, eventually they'll make it. Keep trying.
So I don't know. I mean, that's just some of my theories that I believe that these things could possibly be. And as far as the government technology, this is one of those times I'm thinking, nah, that's probably the on the lesser end of the spectrum.
But technically, if the government had one of these organisms that was able to cloak itself and was able to figure out how it was doing it, and they could then apply that same science to a multitude of things.
Yeah, for sure. If they're okay, all three of us here believe in Bigfoot, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
We all believe that Bigfoot is probably a physical, biological creature that has certain biological abilities, we'll say, implanted in its DNA that makes it totally different than anything else out there. Correct?
Real platypus.
Yes.
Okay. We all three believe that at least a significant, I won't say significant, but a partial portion of people in certain areas of government know that Bigfoot exists and probably has evidence.
Probably.
Yes, I would probably.
So, if all those things are correct, and these things have the ability to cloak themselves, you know the government is studying that. They're going crazy trying to figure out how we can transfer this ability from this to whatever else we can put it on.
Or they've already done that. And they're sending invisible cloaked game wardens into the mountains trying to catch people hunting out of season. Mischief managed.
Because that's the most important thing.
Flipping
Screw catching terrorists overseas or, serial killers. We need those illegal hunters, man. Those guys are the worst.
That's your real terrorist. That's real terrorism. That's terrorism on an eco level. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know about that one, man, as far as game wardens, but I'm not saying they couldn't be studying these creatures,
Well, I'm sure they are. I mean, you know they have to be. There's so many accounts out there of people saying, hey, Bigfoot was here, or hey, there was a body, somebody hit this, or I hit this, or whatever. And then all of a sudden there's these black SUVs rolling up and people leaving, being sent away and coming back, and there's no trace of anybody or anything being there, almost like our UFO colliding with the train incident. You hear a lot of these, Bigfoot getting hit, And it's the same kind of deal. People are answering 1,000 questions. People showing up right off the bat and throwing a body into a back of a truck and gone, never to be seen or heard from again. Men in Black, they're everywhere, dude. They're everywhere.
Here come Men in Black.
They play that song when they roll up too.
I bet they do.
Blaring. They got the boom booms going too. It's thumping and they come up.
I bet it's actually Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones.
They got the boom booms going.
Maybe Will Smith jumps out and smacks the man across the face, then apologizes 10 minutes later and gets emotional.
Except the one time that he messes up.
He slaps Steven Segal.
And he slaps Steven Segal across the face.
First of all, that slap will never connect because Steven Segal would hit him with about 8 punches.
And Damon Wayans
saw the thought before the guy had it, before they even thought about slapping. Steven Segal saw the thought and dodged it.
And Damon Wayans jumps out of the tree and gets Tommy Lee Jones in a guillotine rear naked choke. Was it Damon Wayans? I've been saying Damon Wayans this whole time, and I don't even know if it was one of the Wayans brothers. I don't know if it was Damon.
I think it was Damon Wayans. I'm pretty sure that's right.
I'm gonna have to look this up.
Way to go, Justin.
Dang it!
I'm almost positive it was Damon Wayans. I'm gonna feel stupid if it was not. I'm almost positive it was.
Oh, we've been wrong this whole time, dude. It was Keenan Ivory Wayans.
Way to go, Justin. They don't even look alike. No, they look a lot alike.
But I was not far off. It has an 11% score on Rotten Tomatoes. I wasn't far off.
What's the audience score? What's the audience score? That's the true test.
The audience score, 68%.
See, that's the true test.
Look, Keenan Ivory, I'm really sorry. I know that you're listening to this right now because as a member of the Hill Folk and a huge fan of Appalachian Intelligence, we are extremely sorry that we made a mistake and referred to you as a different Wayans brother.
Listen, we're sorry you're so forgettable and your brother's not. Okay. It's just the way it works sometimes.
Yeah. We're extremely sorry. All right. Your
parents.
So really quickly before we do end this thing, because I want to add, well, I mean, and you guys are probably going to poo-poo on it anyway, because that's just what y'all do. You poo-poo on everything good.
That's not true. That's not true.
True at all.
You poo-poo on all that is good.
He was so excited about talking about this with us, and now he's like, whatever.
I'm sorry that
the last thing.
Mr. Chippendale's dancer in his satellite macroscope telescope. It's a convex, not a concave.
Hey, look, when y'all get nominated for a Nobel Prize in physics and all that stuff,
not as big as a deal as it used to be.
Yeah. Remember, there was a certain president that won one.
That's true. That is true. I'll give
not
you
as
that.
Big of a deal as it used to be.
For peace, right?
I'll give you that one. Yeah, for peace. After he dropped 7,942 million bombs on the Middle East.
The irony.
Yeah.
Thank God he brought all that peace to those poor souls in the Middle East. I don't know if they'd still be alive without it. Yeah. Oh, wait. They're not. But
let's not get political, boys.
We try to make this not a political podcast. So we're going to go to Bruce and Jan Maccabee. Now, again, for you Hill folk out there listening, go check out Missing 411, The Hunted. It is a great documentary. It's got a lot of really weird David Paulides researched stories in there to where he's interviewing the family and people, that knew the cases and the stories. I think one of the stories on there is a guy named Aaron Hedges went missing in the crazy mountains in Montana, I think.
Well, there's your first problem. You were warned in the name. They're crazy.
Really? That's why they were called that.
Those mountains are crazy.
Yeah, that's really why they were called that. The natives called it that because of all the crazy that happened. No joke.
Yeah, I think I'll just go camping up here.
But this guy that went missing up there, dude, it's a wild, wild story. It's nuts. But in the same one, this is kind of the last story, and David Polite. This isn't a missing persons case, but David Politis kind of throws that in there just to say, hey, there's respectable people that are seeing things in the woods, in the forest that they can't explain. You know, maybe possibly there's more going on to missing people other than people just, vanishing. Maybe there's things out there that are taking these people, especially if it's something that is basically translucent and as agile as crap moving through the forest. So Jan Maccabee is hunting on her property. It's a really similar story to the story that the guy told me. The only difference is she's still in her tree stand and she's like taking pictures of herself, of the area, all this different stuff.
About to shoot this big deer.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all, check out my new camo. Got it from Walmart.
Yeah. So she sees this thing that's just like this big, translate this Glimmerman type thing cross from like treetop to treetop over in front of her. Well, she has her camera out and she tries to snap a picture of it really fast. Well, all of the other photos are totally normal except the one where she tried to take a picture of this thing and it was just like, it was jacked up. I mean, it was just like, it was bad. So her husband, Bruce Maccabee, and Bruce is an American optical physicist formerly employed by the U.S. Navy. He's also a ufologist, an early on ufologist, okay? Maccabee received a BS in physics at Worcester Polytechnic Institute in Worcester, Massachusetts.
Where did he get his BS in ufology at?
You hush for a minute. Let me tell you all this guy's credentials.
You want to hear his ufology credentials first?
Well, I'll get there. We'll get there in a minute. We're going chronologically here. Don't poo-poo on Bruce Maccabee. He's a national treasure. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Where have I heard the name Maccabee before?
You're thinking of
I don't know.
Huh?
Are you thinking of McAfee?
You're thinking of Pat McAfee.
No, it's Maccabee.
And then at American University in Washington, D.C., got an MS and a PhD in physics. In 1972, he began his career at the Naval Ordnance Laboratory in White Oak, Silver Spring, Maryland, which later became the Naval Surface Warfare Center Division. Okay, he retired from government in 2008, and he has worked on optical data processing, generation of underwater sound with lasers, and various aspects of the Strategic Defense Initiative and ballistic missile defense using high-powered lasers. All right. Now, here's his ufology credentials, Lance, that you also
more
wanted
impressive than his educational credentials, because those are just not very impressive at all, really.
You're not very impressive at all.
It's a joke. It was a total joke.
Okay, Mike. It says here Maccabee has been interested in UFOs since the late '60s when he joined the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena and was active in research and investigation for the NICAP until its demise in 1980. Became a member of MUFON in '75, and has been a part of all that, that lifestyle ever since. So, with all that though, I say all that it goes on to say a whole lot more about Bruce Maccabee. You can go look him up. He's a pretty credentialed sound. Like he was involved in studying aerial phenomena in the Navy, which piqued interest, for the rest of his life, which tells me he probably seen some stuff there that, hey, I can't explain this. But I say all that to say this dude's not just sitting down thinking, okay, whatever my wife's seen here in the trees, well, that's definitely some kind of alien UFO, whatever. But this guy is, what did it say, an optical something other?
An optical physicist.
Yes, he's an optical physicist. So his wife takes this picture. It's kind of weird. So he starts like going in depth, looking at like the pixels and all these different things and how basically what it all boils down to, the way this picture is pixelated on the camera that she's using shouldn't have been possible. Like it should not have been possible for this kind of a mess up in this picture that she took at the exact same time that she saw this translucent entity jumping from treetop to treetop, this blurry blob. And she snapped this photo. The pixelation of that particular picture shouldn't have been possible. Now he goes in depth talking about the science behind all of that I can't explain off the top of my head because again, I'm not Bruce Maccabee.
We don't know about that.
We don't know that. But just go check him out talking about that account and listening to what he has to say about it, because the way that he kind of describes it, it leads me to believe that whatever this was able to kind of mess up the technical components of this camera. It's weird. It's an interesting case. It's really interesting.
Oh man!
And
also,
that's the kind.
Also a pianist.
Penis?
No, pianist.
Oh,
He's a
play
classic.
piano.
He's a classical penis.
This was since we were talking about it on this.
Yeah, that's what I love about Lance. He's constantly fact checking.
Yeah,
constantly.
Just fact checking all the time.
He lets me do all the legwork, and then when I bring it up in the middle of the show,
nope, this is bullshit.
He brings it up, starts fact checking right off the bat. It's like my own personal Snopes.
I was getting cracked up because it's like none of those are impressive. He's a physicist, Lance. Went to Harvard, can get into Princeton or Yale, dumbass.
The only two people that Lance has poo-pooed on this entire thing have been physicists. One nominated for a Nobel Prize.
Listen, Maccabee. It was a joke. I was saying that obviously very impressive. It's a long list of those things, and I said that wasn't impressive. Just totally in jest, 100% tongue in cheek.
Do I need to pull up Dr. Santilli and look at all the degrees?
I don't need
he
to know
has
about Dr. Chippendales and his satellites anymore.
Does that mean that he was an optical physicist too?
Hey,
I don't know. Maybe he's a classical penis too. I don't know. Maybe you
watch
can't.
out for those classical penises.
Maybe you cannot be an optical physicist unless you're a classical pianist. It might
and
be
a ufologist.
I don't think Dr. Santilli is a UFO. He may be. I don't know. Maybe. I'm sure you'll look it up there, rooters.
No, I want to know how we got to the point to where people can call themselves a ufologist.
I've heard that it's not specifically alien spacecraft. It's unidentified flying objects and sects of the government that are trying to watch the airways and see what in the hell's going on. I don't think it's about studying aliens and spacecrafts.
So it's not like being a professional paranormal investigator.
No. It's simply aerial phenomenon.
Okay, I got you.
Did you say you lost me at sexy government?
I knew that was coming.
All I could think of was like Bill Clinton
branch. The executive branch.
Lance has said Chippendale so much. I was picturing Bill Clinton in a bow tie and black Speedos.
Speaking of boom booms,
it's gonna be a party, y'all.
Hey, y'all, it's gonna be a party. All right, guys. So, first off, y'all got any faith in these Glimmerman accounts?
Yeah, I like them.
Well, I think it's a pretty cool story that in accounts. I shouldn't say story because that makes it sound like I don't believe everybody, but no, I don't believe that guy was lying.
Absolutely not.
Why would he just come up to you and lie about it? So
Too
Well, I
crazy.
don't-
Too crazy not to be true.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And it would be different, you know. I hadn't really, you know, like I said, I'd heard about this topic, and I'd watched Missing 411 The Hunted, you know, so it was something that was kind of in the back of my mind, but you know, wasn't really at the forefront. But then, you know, I hear this account from this guy who, again, you know, I've known all my life. He's a no nonsense guy. But he did ask me, just don't say my name. Because again, just like Ryan has witnessed, we are getting a little bit of a local following. And not everybody is as comfortable with being the local weirdo as I am.
Got no
here's
problem.
how it went down, Lance. We went to DG the other day, same time. And the line was really long, and I only needed trash bags. So I started talking shit to the cashiers. And that got the whole line going. And then these ladies spot Justin. They're like, "Oh, hey, you seen any ghosts?" I'm like, Jesus.
Hey, you boys seen any of them ghosts driving around down there? That light been flickering at the campground anymore while Ian's been down there?
Well, the funny thing was when they first hollered at me to get my attention and start talking to me, and one of the ladies that was in line literally starts telling me stories about where she works and how she thinks it's haunted. And
That's awesome.
but while they start talking about it, I've got a magazine held up, reading and flipping through this magazine, and the
Which I
title,
showed him.
which Ryan showed me, the title of the magazine is "Witches All Through History." So I'm sitting here looking at them.
You were the stereotype. Like you were literally living the stereotype out.
Oh yeah, I was in it. I had my buggy full of pop in front of me, my witch magazine in my hand, listening to people like 5 people down from me tell about how where she works is haunted and we need to come investigate it. I love being a local weirdo. It's
That's
awesome.
awesome.
It's awesome. And I was getting flack from one of these ladies, you know, because she likes to poke fun at, and that's the one that said, "You been seeing any ghosts lately?" And I hit her back, "Well, no, have you?" Because her husband and her son talk about seeing a little ghost girl in their house all the time.
Hey cat. Hey cat.
And it's my dad's next door night. Well, next door, as much as next door is on Lick Creek.
Yeah.
It's my dad's neighbor. When I was growing up, we already know my dad's property is a little wonky. Okay. When I was growing up, my cousin lived in that house. Okay. He was a couple years younger than me. So we hung out all the time. And I remember we were at the campground. We actually were at the campground having a big storytelling time. And the guy that lives there now, this lady's husband, he said, "Well," he said, I got something weird going on around my house too. And then it clicked. It clicked in my brain. I was laying in bed one night. I had a sleepover with my cousin who lived at that house. You know, like I said, it's probably 150 yards away. I just walked through a little patch of woods and was at his house. So we had sleepovers all the time, hung out all the time. His house was a lot cooler than mine. He had a lot cooler toys than I did. So I stayed down there a whole lot. He had bunk beds, and I was laying on the bottom bunk one night looking out of his door. And I could have swore, I even asked him about it. I could have swore that I saw a little girl walk by the door. I remember how she looked. I remember what she was wearing. And whenever this lady's husband, whenever he was down there that night, and he said, "I've got something weird going on around my house too," it clicked. I was like, "Oh, that's the same house." So I said, "It wouldn't happen to be a little ghost girl, would it?" He said, "Yeah, that's exactly what I've seen. I've heard her talk and everything." And I said, does she have kind of like little past shoulder length, dark hair? She's wearing a like a off colored white old style cotton dress. And he was like, his eyes were this big. He was like, that's exactly what I've seen. And then he starts describing her even more, like the color of her eyes and like exactly the print that's on her dress. And it was just like we were matching it up. I had all these memories flooding back from when I saw it, 20 years ago or more, 25 maybe. It's crazy, man. Crazy. So this lady that likes to poo poo on me in my weirdo label, she lives in the haunted house, just so you know.
Yeah, don't come at us, lady, with your bullshit.
Before we get out of here, driving home this evening, girls are in the back watching iPads because we're good parents. Haley asks me, "Hey, y'all podcasting tonight?" I was like, "Yeah, we gotta get on this evening as soon as I get the girls down, and we're gonna do an episode tonight." She's like, "Oh, okay." Holy crap! What is that? Her exact words. And I look, sitting on the guardrail, staring directly into the car.
An owl.
Now,
how big was it?
From sitting in the guardrail, it probably set up at least 2 feet, and it was bigger than a buzzard. Those, the buzzards that are around now, at least. And she was like, "Was that an owl?" I was like, "I went, can't wait still adjusting that one."
That's not an owl, Haley. That's Lilith.
I don't think we're supposed to say
her head turned all the way around looking at me. I was like, "Yep."
I don't think we're supposed to say her name anymore. There was a lady that commented on YouTube that said something about, rabbis back in the old days said that you couldn't say her name or you would invoke her presence. I have a little credibility to
They
her.
also said that Jesus wasn't the Son of God. So,
hey.
Okay, so they missed on a couple.
We do not talk about Jews right now.
That is off limits, Lance.
I'm kidding.
You are about to get Kanye'd.
I'm kidding.
Well, we just lost our Reebok deal.
Yeah, making it funny.
We didn't even say.
I was already thinking about an anti-Semitic joke, and then you came at us with that.
You can't, Ryan. You can't even say that you were thinking about an anti-Semitic joke. We're getting Kanye for sure.
No, I mean anti-Semitic is what I meant. We can't say anything bad about Jewish people right now.
Yeah.
It's
well, I did go look it up. So now I've been kind of into Second Temple Judaism demonology. Yeah, Taco does some weird holes, man.
I don't even know where that came from.
Yeah.
I've actually read a couple Second Temple rabbi teaching Old Hebrew.
Yeah.
And the phonetics of it.
Nice. We may need that in the future.
Been there. It's not fun.
That's what I'm doing right now. Only it's about demonology. And
I wonder how that would line up with some of the Catholic demonology. That would be an interesting topic to have when just us sometime driving somewhere.
Yeah. Like to the Knoxville area in a couple weeks.
Yeah. My mind will be in the right place too. So
I'm staying in the right place.
All right, guys. Let's end this thing. This has been a lot of fun. Sorry, I know that we had kind of a different topic in mind, but I started seeing this thing, and then I heard this story, and then I was
like it.
Nobody knew that, Justin. You didn't have to apologize.
Well, I feel like I have to apologize to you boys, though. I mean, publicly.
I like it when we think when we make a decision to talk about one thing, and then we come in and you have a whole different topic. I like when that happens.
Yeah, I think
it makes me laugh.
It just does. I'm like, okay, here we go.
Especially those times that I'm actually like, you know what? I'm gonna take some notes on some stuff and look into this. And then he's like, change the subject, boys. I quit. I'm winging it from now on.
I'm just coming in and winging it.
I'm
and
just
watching Lance fact check.
I'm shooting from the hip, and Lance will let everybody know what's true and what's not.
All right. Let's dive on out of here. Lance, congratulations. You Hill folk don't know this because we don't really talk about personal lives a whole lot, but Lance is the play caller for a.
Oh, don't tell people that. I get cussed enough on Fridays. I don't need
I won't.
anything.
I won't say the team. He's a play caller for a local high school that he coaches at, and they just got they took a hard loss in the playoffs the other day. But I just wanted to congratulate him on an excellent season.
That's when we went 4-6. It wasn't an excellent season.
Dude, will you just let me would you let me compliment you and congratulate you without giving all the details? They didn't have to know that either.
No, they didn't know that.
Oh.
It's playoffs, baby. It don't matter what the record was. You made the playoffs.
That's true.
Playoffs? You want to talk about the playoffs?
We're just trying to win a game. Playoffs.
It's so funny. You guys are like, where you at least are jumping into old Hebrew demonology. Meanwhile, I'm over here doing gummies and freaking playing fantasy football. I'm just, you need to know who's injured. I'll let you know.
We all have our roles to fill, Ryan. We all have our roles to fill.
Listen, when the NFL starts, don't expect me to not be on FanDuel every day.
Yeah. We all have our roles.
That money.
Well, I mean, this season is not going as well as others. But I will say this, Lance, I put $25 in my account in 2014, and I've been playing off the same money since.
I'm with you.
It's pretty good. Pretty good. Anyway, Lance, congratulations on the season.
Justin, thank you.
It's awesome that you're able to juggle all the things that you juggle and still show up here at least within the first 20 minutes of each episode.
Boys, I told you. I may be late.
Listen, a few more years down the road, we're going to be in this podcast, and his girls are going to be older, and he's going to be like, all right, girls, I love you. It's bedtime. And they're going to go to bed like our kids do. Yeah. Right now, he's got super tiny little ones, and I say, let them be super tiny little, you know?
Yeah.
Because you're going to miss it, Lance. Just, you know.
People keep telling me.
Yeah, you will. You will. All right. Well, Hill folk, hope you enjoyed this one, especially since it was wing it, shoot from the hip. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember, go leave us a 5-star rating and review if you so see fit, wherever you can do that at. Subscribe to our YouTube. Check us out on all of our socials. Follow those. Again, we should have Patreon up and going in the next few days, so keep an eye out on that if you're interested. Send a few dollar bills our way to upgrade some things, get some things taken off. You know, we're almost a year in now. I think it's time that we've established a community. So I think that going forward, we should start up a Discord and let that community keep growing and building and coming together. And we talk about building the tribe. I think that's another good way to do it with Patreon and Discord and all these different things. We'll have some cool things, some cool perks on there. Again, y'all just keep an eye on it. More than anything, like we always say, share the show. Just share the show. It doesn't matter how you share it. Share it on your social media. Share it word of mouth. Tell us to send you some stickers and slap them around. Buy us a billboard and put it on a major highway somewhere. That would be pretty sweet.
Take a picture of it.
Yeah, hire one of these planes to pull a banner with our name and logo across a beach somewhere. That'd be sweet. I
saw that the Russians are using low-level frequencies to put in low-level frequency satellites, to put advertisements. I couldn't find the word advertisements in the stars at night.
Do that. Call up Putin. Call up Putin right now.
I think he's a fan of the show, actually.
And don't say that either right now, Ryan. You're really
That's sarcasm.
You're really trying to get us.
People know Putin's not a fan of our show.
He might be.
People
We
get
got-
canceled for sarcasm all the time, Ryan.
We've got downloads. In,
Yeah.
we've got downloads in Russia. Well, he might be a fan. I don't know.
What if our Russian listener is Putin?
That's hilarious.
And what if our Ukrainian listener is Zelensky? What if that's the only two people? You got Zelensky and Putin listening.
Shout
and
out, boy, shout out.
we could be the potential mediator.
If it is, I get fellas. If you are the two listeners, please put the guns down and let's all just get along.
No, let's don't get along. Keep the innocents out of all this, and you two sign up for a pay-per-view fight in the octagon, and the winner gets to call the shots.
Okay.
The winner gets Kiev.
I'm in with that.
That's not very fair to Zelensky. That's
why ain't it very fair to Zelensky?
Well, first of all,
he's younger, he's more agile, he's an actor. I saw him dancing in high heels.
I wouldn't say more agile.
You're
talking about a KGB operative who rides horseback without a shirt on out in the wilds of Russia.
That's what they put on. That's what they put on the propaganda. That's not really what he is.
Okay.
Look, how much better would the world be? Not only better for results and to keep all this war crap.
If I rode around shirtless on horseback?
No. And also the election process, if when nations got beef with each other, that one nation's leader and the other nation's leader just met in the octagon, and whoever wins gets to call the shots. Tell me that wouldn't dramatically affect the election process. You think we're electing somebody like Biden?
Would ultimately change it. Yeah. We would all be cheering for
me.
Yeah, I say Joe Rogan for president.
Ugh.
And then we just sit back and laugh.
We just send Brock Lesnar to the White House.
That's exactly what I thought earlier, dude. That's the example that I gave when I had this conversation with somebody else. I said Brock Lesnar would be president right now.
Joe Rogan would beat the crap out of you.
Out of Brock Lesnar?
Ryan, yes. You don't believe that.
Ryan, you do not believe that right now.
No, actually,
Joe Rogan don't even believe that.
I don't believe Brock Lesnar was as good a fighter as everybody said. All he did was bull rush people, put his weight on him, and then hammer fist him in the face when he actually fought a legit fighter. Got his ass whipped.
Did he win doing that?
Yes.
Was
until
he
met somebody
heavyweight champion
until he met somebody who could actually fight.
Heavyweight champion. Let's not forget that.
Don't even talk about WWE. Don't put WWE and UFC in the same space. Lance, you just got disqualified from this conversation.
Yeah, we know the UFC.
We have been talking about people's credentials all night long. And you're going to tell me that when we're talking about Brock Lesnar's credentials, we can't mention the fact that he is the WWE.
Not when we're talking about real
international fighting. Universal champion.
Not when we're talking about real fighting.
We can't. We're talking about a physicist in ufology, and we make that comparison.
Those are two separate degrees.
This has really gotten off the rails. Let's end this
two
thing.
Separate fighters.
Brock Lesnar, Joe Rogan. We love you both. Okay.
Joe Rogan would beat his ass.
We love you both. He would beat him in the studio. I hope Brock Lesnar doesn't hear this for your sake, Ryan.
I don't care if he does. He's going to beat me up. You know where I live.
Kill you. You'll be dead.
I'm not saying I can win a fight with Brock Lesnar.
You'll no longer be with us. All right, Hill folk, we love you. We hope you enjoyed all this. Look, you know what you're getting at this point. I'm not even apologizing for it. You know what you're getting. But we love you, and we hope that you love us for all this weirdness and all these tangents that you get. Just how our brains work.
Love you and mean it.
Until next time, we'll see y'all later.
See y'all. Brock Lesnar.